Well, I would argue essentially we're going through literally one of these world historical moments. We're watching the digitization of everything. Everything's getting digitized, connected to computers and interconnected. That's a world historical phenomenon. We're going global in a way that we've never done before. Again, a world historical phenomenon. These are things that in 50, 100, 500 years from now, people look back and say, aha, that's when the world went digital. That step change. That's when the world went global. We're facing climate change and other kind of crazy amounts of these problems. In fact, if you look at all our systems, essentially all our 20th century systems are breaking down. Healthcare, education, retirement systems, all kinds of stuff. And so what's really interesting about this is the country essentially has faced these other junctures before, where you get such deep structural changes to the fabric of how the economy or society works, or such unprecedented challenges that you've never seen it before. And we've watched how, in fact, America has reinvented itself essentially around these challenges 4 times. We don't have the time to go into it. There was one with Thomas Jefferson in the early part of the 19th century. There was a big one coming off the Civil War, where we reinvented how to work for the next 50 years. There's a big one at the early 20th century, the Progressive Era. And the last one we saw was essentially with the World War II, coming off of World War II and the Great Depression. And just to remind ourselves of what that one was, those folks were up against their own set of challenges, were equally as daunting as ours. You know, they had basically their Great Depression, they had the prospect of defeating fascism, communism, nuclear war. Their nuclear war was their climate change. They had no idea how to figure it out. But they could only do 2 things: draw for their technologies and their human resources, which in fact they did. This is some of their crew there, that they did it. And in the space of 15 years, they completely reinvented a new way of running the economy through Keynesian economics. They did a completely new way of essentially containing nuclear war and containing communism in this process there. In 3 years, they built whole new institutions, the UN, IMF, World Bank, institutions, frankly, we're still hanging on to going through today. And essentially, they had this whole set of domestic programs, GI Bill, Social Security, FDIC mortgages, all the stuff that we're still hanging on to here, essentially to rebuild what was going on in the United States. That all happened in 15 years. They went from not having a clue to solving it all in the space of that period. That's essentially, we look back now and we say, oh my God, these people were amazing. They weren't amazing. They were just like us. And so if you come into the next 10 to 20 years here, I think we're going to be going through one of these reinventions in this country. And I think we're actually to see a lot of the signs of it here. And we're going to be leveraging a level of powerful tools. Now here's our cloud at work here. I mean, think about how they would have thought about this. Think about how they wouldn't have to be confining their problem solving to these physical meetings looking at people in the eye, but eventually could connect up people all over the country, all over the world. Think if, in fact, instead of having a little working group trying to solve one problem, you could take on, because of that scale, all kinds of different challenges at the same time, and even go deeper into each of those challenges. Because of the scale of numbers, you could pull people together. You could do all kinds of sub kind of problem solving at a much more defined level. And so we basically are getting a situation, and you get this incredible power that you can drive all these entrepreneurs. Now, he mentioned kind of my background here. I actually have just started a new company. It's called Reinventors. It's kind of playing off in the same space. We are one of these cloud companies. I got a small little team in San Francisco. All our stuff is in the cloud. We're using the powerful computers in the cloud. We're using all our data. In fact, what we're really using is we're taking advantage of this group video. And we're stitching together people, experts, innovators from all over the country, in fact, all over the world, getting them in these roundtable things. This is free. We're using essentially initially Google Hangouts to start off this thing. This is astounding power, unleashing all this creativity for entrepreneurs like myself. But what we're actually doing, in fact, these are some of the 8 folks that are going to start off the show. It starts in the beginning of the year here, actually over the web. What they're really doing is getting into this fundamental reinvention. And here's what I'm saying. Once you connect up everything through computers, once you have the same amounts of data, you start to really, by necessity, have to reinvent how these things work. I mean, we now know, like government regulation, Tim O'Reilly, how would you actually regulate things? Not a bureaucratic old way we did in the 20th century. How could you do it with the way we could have interconnected computers? What would you do with copyright law? How do you reinvent copyright law in a situation now where I was pulling stuff right off the web, right, going into this talk right here? The old copyright law has no idea of that kind of world. And then even privacy here. Thinking privacy. Now, we talked about security. We have to fundamentally rethink in a world where everybody's genome here is going to be essentially calculable in 10 years. It's going to essentially be in the cloud. And you can actually protect that and be hyper kind of worried about people seeing that, except you and your doctor. Or and this is the 21st century version of privacy, you could say, wow, I could learn a lot by comparing my genome to everyone else's genome, and people with my kind of disposition and my genetic kind of layout might actually be able to learn from each other, figure out better ways to maintain our health differently. There's big shifts starting to happen now around what happens in this new world of these big data sets, these interconnected computers, this kind of decentralized network model across all kinds of different fields. The computer industry and your industries that were tied into them very quickly, you essentially are blazing a trail that is now going to move to all the different areas of America, education, energy, you name it. That's the reinvention ahead of us now.